James Ham into the conversation. There's a lot to talk with James about today, but we'll start with Keon Ellis, Hammer. Keon started yesterday. It didn't really go well. I know Kyle had said something earlier about how it feels like Keon has to play perfect when he's out there. I don't think he has to play perfect, Hammer, but it feels like Keon makes a lot of really bad mistakes when he's out there, and he did it again yesterday.
Yeah, it just feels like he hasn't eased into the season yet, you know? And we talked about this a little bit earlier on the Insiders. There's just this feel with this team that, so many of the guys can do everything, right? They're do-it-yourself offensive players, and Keon's not, and Keegan isn't. And there's a couple others, again, like Precious Achua isn't that type of player. But it feels like there are so many of the guys that again like to create for themselves, and the other guys just kind of are kind of getting left out. So I don't know. I think it's difficult to settle into a team that just isn't playing well, and
Mhm.
everyone is trying to do too much and then trying to do too little, and then it just looks like everything is wrong. And I think it's more or less that he's just caught in the middle of that. Plus, like, let's be honest, like some people deal with a contract year in a good way, and others don't. So sometimes a guy will come in trying too hard, trying to put his stamp, trying to show the other, 29 teams in the league of what he can do every single time he goes out there. And it kind of does feel like Keon's just not all that comfortable right now. And, hopefully he gets over that.
It could also be that um, we, as a Kings fan base and people that follow the Kings on a hourly basis, and those who were chanting at the Golden One Center, like y'all could have been just putting too much on Keon, like not like pressure, but just like not the savior. Like he's a good basketball player. He's a player that you want on your team, but he's not going to change your fortunes.
Mhm.
I don't believe.
Mhm.
And the reason, because he is kind of flawed. Like I don't think Keon is playing that much different than he always has. Maybe he's not getting the same amount of shots that he would when he would get extended minutes. Maybe that's the difference. But he's always been a physical, handsy defender. That's part of the reason why we like him.
Mhm.
That also leads to him making fouls and from time to time being in foul trouble. Like he's doing a lot of the same stuff that he's done that we like about him. But it was just kind of this thought process that like, why aren't you playing Keon? This is great. Like, if you want to win, you play him, and then you play him. And sometimes he gets cooked by Austin Reeves. Sometimes he does a great job at the end of games. Like, it's just, I don't know, Ham. I just don't think he's been that different of a player. And you're seeing some of his highs and his lows as a player.
Yeah, and I would say the same thing about Keegan Murray. Like when Keegan shows up, it's not like Keegan's going to save the day. I mean, you're a horrible defensive team. One player cannot fix a horrible defensive team. It doesn't matter who that is. Victor Wembanyama couldn't make the Sacramento Kings a great defensive team. But there is something that I would point out. Doug Christie talked about this in post game a couple of games ago when they were at home. He said, like the other team is just playing physical, and when you play physical, it sets the standard for play that's going to go on during a game, right? And so the officials eventually accept that standard of play. They are okay with that standard of play because that's what you're doing every single time down the court, and it's just they understand it to be your style, right? And he's like, so when one team plays that way and the other doesn't, and the one team that's playing that way keeps getting away with a bunch of stuff, and the other team, makes like a weird grab foul and gets called for touch fouls, it's because the team that's not playing physical, it stands out when they do something that's physical. And I was listening to Doug say this, and it does describe exactly what's happening in Keon Ellis. Like he's going out there and trying to play the physical style that they did. You remember the back half of the season 2 years ago where the refs just let everybody play? Well, it's like Keon is trying to go out there and play that style, but the rest of his team isn't. And so it stands out, and he's getting foul calls because he's playing too physical or too loose of defense, and the rest of his team isn't. And so again, it's almost like the balls and strikes things that we talk about all the time. It's all right if the ump is calling a high strike, as long as he's calling the high strike and he doesn't do other things. Well, the Kings, like nobody's playing a hard physical style of basketball. So when Keon starts doing it, it's like, what are you doing? And he keeps getting foul calls. So I just think like everything seems to be wrong right now with this team. Nothing seems to be flowing. Nothing seems to be going well. And when it does, it means that two or three other people that were having a good season so far aren't going to have a good time for that game. And so this team, they all just take turns, either being really good or really bad, but never really good as a team together.
Hammer, you brought up Keegan Murray, and you broke some news on him earlier. What's it look like for Keegan Murray this week?
Yeah, it's all good news. It sounds like he's gonna, go practice with the G League team for a second, but then he's gonna join the team in Oklahoma City on Wednesday. Whether he plays on Wednesday or not is probably still being debated. But he's been cleared for 5-on-5. He's been cleared for contact, which is why he's going to the G League. There just aren't a bunch of days of practice. Plus, they could throw Keon on a flight. He could get to whatever city they're in and miss the practice already. And they want him to go through a practice or two, make sure he's feeling contact, that he knows exactly what's coming, once he steps onto an NBA court, which is people target a bad hand and they're going to go at him. But he's getting close. There's a hope that he will play on the back end of this road trip before they head home.
Why wouldn't guys like Keegan Murray, and even to a certain degree, like I understand why this guy wouldn't, but like LeBron, why wouldn't they play a game or two in the G League like they do in baseball or something like that, rehab assignment?
Yeah, I mean, because I think when you go play like at AAA, you're just looking at players that are just such a small margin off of what a Major League Baseball player is. And so, yeah, a guy could lose control of a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, but like the opportunity to get injured isn't really there. You go to the G League, and especially early in the season in the G League, there are a bunch of players that they're NBA hopefuls, but they're guys that are never going to make it to the NBA. And you're worried about guys trying too hard, especially against NBA players. But I'm with you, Kenny. Like not having a true minor league system is a flaw to the NBA. It's a huge flaw to the NFL. Like, the NFL, they go out and they literally sign guys that have been sitting at home for 6 weeks because there isn't a minor league system where they can sit there and stay fresh and keep playing. I would just say that, it's kind of like a summer league game or even like a preseason game where late in the game, those last 5 guys on the roster are just trying too hard. And sometimes that leads them to injuring somebody. And so that's why I think a lot of teams don't send their star level players down to the G League to go get like a rehab assignment or two, just because you're worried about injuries and stuff.
Hammer, what do you think Doug is going to ask of Keegan Murray when he returns?
Well, I mean,
save us?
Yeah, I mean, that's the bajillion-dollar question, right? Like, I don't know. I think initially it's just gonna be to space the floor and to play defense and to go get rebounds and to try to help out wherever this team needs help. But eventually, you would hope that it's like, hey, you got to give this kid an opportunity to try to become the player that a lot of people think he can be. And that means that you're going to have to clear out some of the people around him or just give him opportunities to play with people that play a different style, that are willing and able to let him be more of a cog on the offensive end. But I don't know if that's going to happen or not. We're going to have to wait and see, especially, like he tore the ligament in his left thumb, and he's left-handed, but he shoots with his right. So it's his non-dominant hand, but it is his dominant hand, if that makes sense. It's not his shooting hand, but it is his dominant hand. So I'm intrigued to see how he moves, how he goes up for a rebound, and whether he can hold on to the ball, because I do think he's going to be wearing something on his hand for a lot of the season remaining, whether it's like a full-fledged brace or it's tape or whatever. He will have something on that left hand, and you're going to have to be cautious with it. So I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see what he looks like. I mean, it is a long time to be away from the game and not be able to play at all.
You think he's going to be on minutes restriction for the first week or so? Watch his minutes, make sure they're not doing too much, or is it typically in the NBA when you're good to go, there ain't no minutes restriction?
It depends on the injury and the player, and also I would say the franchise, right? I don't think he'll be on a minutes restriction at all because, like, look, he's had a bum hand, but he's been able to practice. He's been able to shoot. He's been able to run. He's been able to lift. He's been doing everything a normal player would do except for play 5-on-5 or 3-on-3. He's not going up against people and risking getting that hand hit again. Once he gets into a game, like, look, it's not like there should be some limitation on him. It's going to be realistic. Like, how does he play? And how does he play through the injury? Like, does he drop a bunch of balls out of bounds that are, drop a bunch of rebounds out of bounds? Does he struggle with, getting his hand caught in a crowd and worrying about his hand? Is it something where he literally can't go left and use his left hand to attack the rim? We don't know, and we won't know until we see it. But for me, like, he's a really good player. We talk about, like, who's the best player on your team and all that stuff. Like, when it comes to all around basketball play on the defensive end and on the offensive end, his ability to be a two-way player makes him one of the most valuable players on this roster. And teams around the league would love to get their hands on Keegan Murray. And it's one of the reasons why the Kings signed him to the contract extension they did. Because not only do they believe that he has a ton of skill, but they also know that teams around the league think that there's more to his game, and there's a possibility down the road that he will be a big ticket item that they might use to go get other players down the road. So for me, I really think that, we need to see who Keegan is. This is the year that he was supposed to show us who he is, but so was last year. And you're hoping that, whatever the limitations of the roster and everything else, they don't stop him from elevating and being the player that we hope that he can be.
Do you think there's because of how bad this has all gone, that there's an added element of added amount of pressure on him?
Sure. Like, I think he'll be in the same situation Keon is, where you're out there trying too hard. And again, they're in a different
I don't think
situation.
so, because his bank account is different.
Yeah.
Or it will be.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that you don't feel like you have to live up to that bank account now.
Sure.
So I think there is a balancing act here. And hey, let's be honest, Keegan Murray, like, just on his rookie scale deal, is making 11 or 12 million bucks this year anyways. He's making a good 9 or 10 million more than Keon Ellis. So Keon has a lot, riding on this. But I also, like, if you can make it to the NBA, you should have goals beyond that, right? If you're the number 4 pick in the draft, you should want to be your team's leading scorer. You should want to have aspirations of being an all-star, an all-defensive team player, all that stuff, somehow working your way into being a Hall of Fame player down the road. And I'm not saying any of that's on the table for Keegan, but that doesn't mean that he shouldn't aspire for that. And while he's not very vocal, I do think that he wants big things. He does want to be a really, really good NBA player. And, like, opportunities don't come around all the time for you to be that player. So hopefully he does get some of that opportunity here as the season goes on.
Talking a little bit about that game yesterday in San Antonio, we've talked about how Keon and Zach LaVine didn't play at all in the fourth quarter. I know the initial thought is like, hey, they got benched. They weren't playing well. Doug Christie had enough, and he wasn't going to play him. Think about it a little bit more nuanced. Do you think it had more to do with the fact that the group that was out there cut into that lead and got it down to 6, and you kind of got into a in-between spot when you talk about substituting somebody in for that group? Or was it what a lot of people think is they weren't playing well, so they didn't get to play?
No, I think it's something different. I think, like, look, when you're watching a team, a group of players start to play well, and they're veteran players. Let's not act like this is a group of young players that you put out there and they clawed back into the game. Now it's time for the vets to come back in. I mean, if Dennis Schroeder is going to find his game, then go ahead and play. If Russell Westbrook is going to go out there and hit some threes and go grab rebounds, then stick with him. Malik Monk is bringing the energy, stick with him. Like, you can only play so many of the guards that they have on this team, the guards / forwards, and DeMar DeRozan's out there hitting every shot. Like, Domantas Sabonis is the best rebounder in the NBA. Like, and you're everything. So, like, who are you gonna pull to put in a Zach LaVine or a Keon Ellis if the guards around them are playing extremely well? And sometimes the decision is to go with the guys that are playing the best that night and that have got you in a position to potentially win a game. Like, I don't know what to say about Zach LaVine, because Zach LaVine was sitting on 4 points forever. Didn't take any shots, sitting on 4 points. And remember, he had the 4-point play from the corner when he got fouled on the 3. He doubled his point total and went to 8. And that was it. Like, man, if you're going to be out there, like, be active. And a lot of the problems his team has is just even when they shared the ball, it's almost like an intentional sharing of the ball. Like, see, I gave it to you that time. It's a very, very selfish team on the court, and they're really struggling with that. And, the passive players, the guys like Keegan, the guys like Zach can be passive. They're the ones who are going to lose when you got players on this team that are selfish, that are, definitely very driven by their numbers and very driven by, scoring and doing the things that they've done their entire career. And that's part of the issue with this team. And it was always going to be this way. They just have a massive imbalance. And it's not just a massive imbalance of, tall people versus small people, which they have that issue. It's an imbalance of styles of play, where you have a lot of players who have spent their entire career scoring a bunch of baskets. And they, sure, they do other things sometimes, but really it's who they are. And we saw it last night where Russell Westbrook started passing guys on the all-time list, the all-time scoring list. He gets up to like number 17 or 18 last night. DeMar DeRozan, same thing. He's trying to get into the top 20 here before his career is over. And you're watching these things play out, but what it looks like is guys who want to get their points and their rebounds and their buckets, and you just, it's not really conducive to winning. And that's why we see the Kings struggling so much. They're still just a collection of scorers. They are not a team of a basketball team at all at this point.
I don't disagree with they're not a team. I don't know. I remember that 3-pointer from Zach LaVine, though, the 4-point play, because my stupid ass thought, okay, all right, this was a, there you go, let's get something here. Nothing happened. For those that didn't see the game, absolutely nothing happened. They scored 4 points and then gave up 8. It's just, that was the flow of the game. Yeah, very, very quick. Malik's playing. Malik got back to scoring. It's hard to say he played great yesterday, but one thing we've seen over the last couple of games, Hammer, is Dennis Schroeder. Doug Christie made that switch on going into Friday's game, I think it was, putting Russell Westbrook into the starting lineup as the Sacramento Kings starting point guard. We've seen Dennis Schroeder go to the bench, and we've seen him have 2 good games since that move. What do you attribute that to, or what can we attribute that to?
I think it's probably a combination of things. Number one, the whole 1 for 19 stretch over the 3 games before this 2-game stretch, he just looked lost. He doesn't know, where to go. Again, this isn't a team that is flowing at all. There is no like offensive flow at all. And whatever defensive flow, it's like, hey, Dennis, pick that guy up, and we're just going to hang out back here. I think that when he when he went to the bench, he's able to look at the game, each and individual game as it's playing out, and figure out how he fits into what's going on. And that's something that, good bench players can do. And I've always said the value to Dennis Schröder is the fact that he can play off the bench. He can start, he's done everything in his career, but realistically he's about 50-50, whether he's a starter or a bench player. So when you're sitting there watching everything unfold, you can go, oh, I think I can take advantage of that spot right there. Or I think I can do this. I think I can help the team in this way. When you're with the starters, it's kind of like the same thing that Keegan has gone through. Like a lot of times when you're the starting rotation with this team, you're out there with 4 other like top tier scorers. And so you're the 5th option. And I feel like Dennis has kind of been lost in like, what option am I? And, when Precious is out there, clearly he's the 5th option. But like, are you the 2nd option? Are you the 3rd option? Are you the 4th option? And, a lot of times having defined roles for players is really helpful. And when he's coming off the bench, that's his team off the bench. And, Malik Monk is being asked to not be the distributor that he has been in the past. He's been asked to be an off-ball shooter, and he's done a really good job at that so far this season. His assist numbers are down, and I think it's kind of like not using some of the superpowers that Malik has as far as like a pick and roll player. But again, there's only so many bounces of the ball on every possession. And this team has a lot of guys who feel like they need to be the one bouncing the ball.
Is it just as simple as he started making shots? Like, do you feel like the looks are different off the bench and in this situation, or did he just get more comfortable and got the same looks this time? They're just going down.
I don't know if it's just as simple as the ball's dropping, that he's hitting shots. I mean, that's helping for sure, but there's a different confidence to him when he's shooting those shots. And so it's sort of like the chicken or the egg. Like, you're not quite sure what it is that's the problem. But he definitely is shooting the ball with a lot of confidence from the perimeter. But he also was shooting the ball with quite a bit of confidence before. He just wasn't hitting anything. And so I felt like he got a little gun shy. So maybe you're right there. Maybe that is kind of what's happening. The ball is falling. But I also just feel like he's playing the game. He looks like he's just out there, like in the flow and trying to be a good basketball player, where before it kind of felt like he was trying to pick his spots. And a lot of times picking his spots were like some really bad shots. You just look at like, what are you doing there? And it was almost like you could see him like, oh, I better score. And that wasn't, conducive to winning either. So I don't know. I do feel like it's a lot about finding a role. And the Kings right now, they don't feel like they have a bunch of players who understand what their roles are or play to a role. And it's kind of a free for all.
Well, I know what James's role is, and it is the top insider in the game. So we'll come back and we'll talk with our Kings insider from the Insiders, James Ham, here. More with D'Lo and KC on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320.
See, Taylor, easy work. Easy work.
Nobody cuss.
Is someone else there?
Yeah, we got young Taylor interested in sports journalism. Want to just come see
Cool.
what goes on at the radio station.
Nice.
You go to she might not be able to hear me. I think she goes to Sac State.
Okay.
John Bull, I would say I feel like Malik Monk is more of a finisher than a facilitator. Not that he can't do it, but I'd rather have guys setting him up to finish as opposed to him looking not to finish as much and setting other guys up. Like, he can facilitate, but what's he best at? He's a scorer. He's a bucket getter. Like, let him be the best at what he's best at. So now that's kind of my thought. That doesn't mean never pass or never look for any other guys, but I want to make sure he's comfortable finishing.
Yeah, I would say, like when the Kings went out and got Malik, part of it was because De'Aaron Fox said, "Hey, this dude can play." But part of it was because the advanced statistics said he's the best pick and roll ball handler in the game. And like he is an elite setup man in the pick and roll. Like there isn't a better one. And for that matter, when they went out and got JaVale McGee was the top roll like finisher in the league. And so the idea was they would use those two together. It just didn't work out that well because JaVale McGee, was past his prime as a player and struggled with some basics. But there's a way in which you can use him with Domas. Just think how many bad pick and rolls this team does. How many times they turn the ball over, trying to get the ball to the roll man. I mean, I've seen it like countless times. I mean, the games where Russell Westbrook is turning the ball over 5 times or 7 times, which has happened like, I don't know, 3 of the last 4 games. It's not that he had the one where he just, gave the ball away, which was bad when they had that stretch of 3 straight turnovers, but it's on the roll. It's when he's trying to get the ball to Drew Eubanks or Precious Achiuwa or even Domas, he just makes some really egregious errors. And Malik, for whatever reason, doesn't do that. Like Malik has a very, very good feel for the pocket pass as the ball handler in a pick and roll situation. So, yeah, I would like to see, to be honest, I'd like to see more of Malik doing it because the other guys aren't showing me that they can actually do it. So it's tough because that's why, you have a guy like Domas who's like inconsistent with how many shots he's taken completely, especially like this season. Like overall, there are nights where he's too passive, but this season, like you don't know how many shots you're going to get. And a lot of his shots are coming off of putbacks. I've even seen him create a little bit more. Stevie B 916, do I think that the Kings are shopping Malik like they were since he's been playing well? Stevie B, they're shopping everybody. Yeah. They're shopping everybody who is under contract. I mean, I don't know if they're shopping if it's like, but they're listening. They're listening to anything because they want to flip this roster. And Malik's under contract this year, next year, and has a player option for another year at like $21 million that he's going to pick up. It's funny. They went through this stretch where they couldn't find enough playmakers. And now it's like they have too many.
All
right.
Let's just get right back into the conversation because it certainly didn't stop during the commercial break. Hammer, you were just talking about the playmakers or perhaps lack thereof on the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about this a couple of years ago, they lost Kevin Huerter and Malik Monk right at the end of the season, and they walked into the playoffs or the play-in not having enough playmaking at all. And, the original Beam team, again, Malik Monk got hurt right before the playoffs, and you didn't have that secondary playmaker. Now it feels like this team has like way too many guys who are playmaker extraordinaires. And, I think that's, that was part of the apprehension with going out and getting Russ. But it's also, you got Dennis Schröder and you have Malik Monk and, you've got DeMar who doesn't really play make for others, but, he likes to, his usage is high. He likes to dribble the ball and do what he does. And then you have Domas Like it just feels like a whole bunch of people who are, it's not just taking turns taking shots, it's taking turns like with the ball in their hands. And so there isn't a pecking order, it feels like, with who should be the guy. And that's where, like, again, I think Dennis is finding a lot of success off the bench, because with that second unit, they're kind of giving him like carte blanche and saying, go ahead and do whatever it is you do. And then the same thing with Russell Westbrook in the starting lineup, like, go ahead and be who you are. That's fine. But it does feel like, that whole thing where in the final 8 seconds of the shot clock, that's when you get it to the guy who's supposed to go create and get a bucket, right? And I don't know who that is on this team. I think they all feel like it's them. I think Zach feels like it's him. I think Dennis and Russ and DeMar, they all feel like it's them in that moment. And that's where we're kind of having this problem with, not only that, but the spacing issue is always going to be a problem too. Because while these guys are great playmakers, none of them are, above average 3-point shooters outside of, for their career, outside of Zach and Keon, but Keon's not one of these guys who's handling the ball a whole bunch. So when you don't have the playmaker, when you don't have the floor spacers, it becomes really difficult to play make. Like, just the floor, there's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to go. And so you need to have better screens and all that stuff. And again, the Kings are super undersized at every position. So that becomes an issue as well.
James, we kind of went through this hypothetical earlier today about the Kings. Number one, their record, the feeling people have for them. Do you feel how? I should ask you a question. How much do you feel the schedule plays into their record? And what I mean by that is, are they just a sorry team that it doesn't matter what the schedule is? That's what their record would be, or the fact that they've played, it's going to be Oklahoma City 3 times, Denver twice, Minnesota twice. Like, they've played the top of the top throughout at least the Western Conference so far this year. How much of a role does that play into what their record is, in your opinion?
I think it plays a huge role, and I don't want to use it as an excuse for this team. But let's say that they had this schedule where they got to play the Kings, they got to play the Clippers, and then they had to play the Nuggets. But then Jazz, Grizzly, Jazz, Spurs, Warriors, Clippers, Pelicans, Mavs, Indiana, Hawks, Trailblazers, and you're looking at that schedule, Minnesota again, Spurs again, Rockets. But then, like, the front half of that schedule, that's the Suns schedule, which is the easiest schedule in the NBA so far as like strength of schedule. So when we look at the Suns wins, everyone's talking about them. Oh, they've got 8 wins. Their wins are against the Kings, the Jazz, the Spurs, but then the Clippers twice, and the Clippers are horrible. The Pelicans, the Mavs, who are bad, and the Pacers, who are the worst team in basketball. So that's what their schedule looks like versus what the Kings schedule looks like. And look, I think one of the problems that the Kings have is that when things start to go wrong, you lose a key player. They've had a bunch of little ticky-tack injuries throughout the season. So, like, very rarely do they have their entire roster. But even when they do, you have no way to build momentum when the next game is against OKC or the next game is against Minnesota. And it's like there are no soft spots in the schedule so far for the Kings outside of the first 4 games, which we talked about when it was happening. And I said, man, they really need to go 3-1. They really need to go 4-0, but 3-1 at a minimum. And then they didn't, right? To open the season, they went 1-3. Like, those were the easiest games of the schedule. The Suns aren't really that good of a team if you really break it down. I still believe that. The Lakers, without Luka, without LeBron, aren't that good of a team. But then once you get past that, like, how are you supposed to take a breath and actually bounce back when you play OKC one night, and then a game that might be against a lesser opponent the next night is against the Bulls, but it's a back-to-back. And then one night against Minnesota, the next night against Atlanta. So even the 2 teams that you can look at and go, okay, they're not great teams, they're solid teams, but they're not great teams. Like, it's always on the second night of a back-to-back. So I don't know when you're supposed to, like, if things were going well, they probably could have got the ball rolling and picked up a couple more wins here. But when things go bad and it just feels like the weight of the world is on you, it really kind of snowballs and gets out of control. And that's why I think, you're looking at the schedule and you're like, man, is this team going to win again until they get to Memphis? And then are they going to win again until maybe they get to game 18, 19, 20? That's really tough because you're looking at the whole time as a player going, man, we have a legitimate shot at going 5-15 to start the season, or 4-15 in the first 19 games. That doesn't feel good. And it feels like the schedule is just another gigantic, wet blanket on this team, because it's not like they can get up off the deck. As soon as they do, someone else is ready to knock them down and hit them in the face. And that's just a tough place to be in when you're a team who hasn't really found your rhythm and found who you are or flow as a team.
I'm with Hammer. I don't know when this team is winning again. You brought up Memphis. I'm not sold.
Even with Ja?
I have, yeah. I mean, I guess we haven't touched on that. Ja's out. I love that. Do you notice
2 weeks?
Did you notice that the new thing in these tweets is to say, Ja Morant will be reevaluated in 2 to 3 weeks with a ankle, whatever it is. They're not saying they're out. They'll just say that they're reevaluating in 2 to 3 weeks. I've noticed that in some of Sham's recent tweets, and I don't know what the catalyst to that is. But
being more accurate.
Point being,
you say somebody will be back in 4 weeks, and then they're not.
Yeah. Point being, I have no clue when this team's going to win another basketball game. I'm not sold on Memphis. I mean, certainly, Wednesday, Oklahoma City, that's the second night of a back-to-back against Memphis. I know that they've got their own issues going on. I don't know, man. I don't know that they can kick out of this. Just to keep a pulse. I'm ready to call Dexter, man. Just end this thing.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, yeah, because even when they do get to a lighter spot in the schedule, by that point, are they just too beaten down? And have they not gone through the process of learning how to win and learning who's doing what? Because this whole entire front half of the schedule just feels like desperation is set in. And in every game, it doesn't matter what, the final score is, you feel that desperation sink in, in the third quarter or in the early fourth quarter of every game. You're like, uh-oh, there it is. I see it. Oh, they feel like things are going wrong, and now they're pressing, and then that's how things get even worse. So yeah, I don't know. Again, once a soft spot in the schedule comes, are they going to be too damaged by that point to even get through a soft spot in the schedule and pick up a bunch of wins to try to get themselves back in the right frame of mind? And then the other thing is, I mentioned this earlier. If you notice, Kings fans want to talk about playoffs. They want it, or the play-in, and we've heard it for so many years here. Oh, that's the goal. Last year, DeMar DeRozan joins the team, and he thought that they could make the Western Conference Finals, right? That was the big thing to open last season. They're not talking about playoffs, and they have not talked about playoffs. And to be honest with you, Scott Perry has not set the bar at, this is about playoffs. This is about building a culture. It's about finding the right people. It's about cleaning up whatever was going on that was wrong here, about filtering out a bunch of the nonsense and setting a new standard for this franchise moving forward. And the words playoffs have not been a big part of any discussion, even coming into the season before they got off to this bad start. I do think that the focus here from Kings fans is because you get a little taste of the good life with the original Bean team, and you're like, okay, we're ready. We're finally going to get back into the playoffs and be part of this thing and have a good time for 6 or 7 years. And that just ended. It's over. That the vibes of that season, they're gone. And so now it's about trying to figure out a way out of the mess you're in. And, again, people in the chat, throwing blame at Monty McNair, or, you want to throw blame at Mike Brown, or you want to throw blame at Vivek, or you want to throw blame at Scott Perry for not adjusting the roster, Doug Christie for not making enough adjustments. This thing is well beyond just one person and where you can place blame. There's certainly a pathway where we can see that unwound, but that's because we have hindsight. Like hindsight is always 2020. We can look back and say, yeah, probably one of the biggest mistakes they made was signing DeMar DeRozan and not bringing in more of a shooter, more of a defensive player at that position. And then, that started to lead to the team not playing well, not because DeMar's a bad player, but because the fit was bad. And then all of a sudden you have the Mike Brown situation, you have the De'Aaron Fox situation. This thing spins out of control so quickly. But that's where I'm kind of at. Like, I don't think that like any one person is to blame outside of the fact that the same owner's been in place for like 12 or 13 years now. And it feels like we get to this point every like 3 years where you have to scrap everything and start over.
James, do you think that, just your opinion, once again, you think this team is tough enough to kick out of what they've had to deal with so far this year and like get to respectability? Not once again, not be top 6 and all this other stuff. Get your head back above water. Can you get a little close? You can get 2-3 games under 500 and, and talk about playing. Do you think they've got it in them to do that from what you've seen from them so far?
I'm going to say no, and it's for a specific reason. I think that, anyone can look at the schedule and realize that the final 25 games of the season are like the easiest games the Kings are going to play, right? But I don't think that the Kings want to get to the phase where they're just trying to win as many games as possible to make the play in at the very end of the season and try to dig out of some monster hole. I think that this is an opportunity for Scott Perry to push the button and say, we have to rebuild now. We have got to flush whatever we can of our monstrous contracts out of the way and start anew. And that's where I'm kind of looking at this as, like if you're winning, or let's say you're floating, maybe 5 games under 500 at the All-Star break, this franchise could easily talk themselves into the final 25 games as like a ramp up to the playoffs, where at this point, I don't think you can. I mean, you're 3-11. Is that what they are now?
Yeah, but the top half of the Western Conference is really good. That bottom half, though,
No suspect.
It's a little rocky. Like, I mean, we talked about Memphis a minute ago, everything that they're dealing with. Now you got the Ja injury on top of that. Of course, we saw an Atlanta team play better when their star player went out. So who knows what's ahead for Memphis? You've got a Clippers team that, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. You decide. Like, they appear to be an absolute disaster. You've got the Mavericks down here. They fired their general manager, the New Orleans Pelicans. They fired their head coach. The Utah Jazz are lingering around this conversation. God knows what they're even attempting to accomplish this year. Portland and Phoenix aren't in they're in that same vicinity as well. It's not crazy. Like, I don't know. You pull together a couple of games, rally the troops. Like, it really isn't that crazy. It's just a dumb conversation to have today.
Yeah, when they've lost 6 in a row.
Right. It is a dumbass conversation today. But when you look at the state of that bottom part of the Western Conference, it's like, because Dallas is going to get its ass kicked by Oklahoma City, Denver, Houston, all of all of those teams up there. You got LeBron James getting ready to return to the Los Angeles Lakers. Who knows what that's going to look like? You got, this situation now with Wemby out for the next couple of weeks. Like, there's just so many different things at play where it's like, yeah, this is it's a little crazy there at the bottom of the West.
Yeah, and I think that's why you can always talk yourself into it, but I don't think that that's the route they're going to go. Like, I think they would like to win more games. They'd like to feel more comfortable because, like, building a culture while you're losing is nearly impossible. But, like we're sitting here talking about the Memphis game. Like, again, it's an easy one on the schedule. And again, they play the Oklahoma City Thunder the night before they play the Memphis Grizzlies. Like, there is no easy spot in the first 18 games of this schedule, 19 games. And that's just like the brutal reality. And I expect, like what we talked about earlier, like the Phoenix Suns have had the easiest schedule in the NBA. Their win percentage against is like a 420 win percentage, where the Kings is like a 595. Like it's just imbalanced. But after we get through like tomorrow night's game and then the Memphis game and then like maybe the Minnesota game, the Kings will have the easiest schedule the rest of the way in the NBA. Like that the schedule flips completely. Strength to schedule wise, they will have the easiest schedule to go. And that's where you can talk yourself into, okay, well, maybe we can make a run, because it's not the final 25 games. We're talking the final 60 that you have the easiest schedule. And so maybe they do have that idea that they can make a run. And, oh, maybe if Keegan can be that guy that can really help us, maybe it can change some things. But I think they're pretty committed to moving players. And, again, I don't know if it's going to happen after December 15th. I don't know if it's going to happen in January. If there were a deal to be had today that what they think would make them better, they would absolutely make that deal. And making them better might not mean winning more games today. Making them better might mean that they get a draft pick that can help them down the road. It could mean that they free themselves of the final year or two of somebody's contract. Like there are a lot of ways to get better, whether it's financially, whether it's, draft capital. It's not always going to be, I know this is going to kill Kenny. It's not always going to be about wins on the court, because sometimes that's not the best way to get better for a team like the Kings, who are looking at, purgatory and trying to find a way out of it.
Well, no, completely understand that. That leads to another question that I asked these guys earlier as well, James. Would you, and I think we all three of us said no, but I thought about it maybe for the longest. Would you attach a first-round pick to get rid of LaVine or Sabonis's contract? And when I say a first-round pick, it doesn't have to be your own. If they took the San Antonio one in 2 years and accepted that in a deal to move on from Zach LaVine, that's what made me think about it. I don't think I would either. But, man, Zach's not even the worst of it, I don't think, because you got, 3 years left to Sabonis?
This year, 2 more.
And Keegan's contract, but that's another, your cap is starting to be an issue too.
Well, I think the problem is you can't have a couple of those guys, right? And as soon as DeMar falls off the books, Keegan steps right up into DeMar DeRozan range plus. That's kind of the way his contract is built. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know what the easiest pathway here is forward, but I don't see them attaching a pick, whether it's their own or it's someone else's, because how much we all love Wemby, he once again has a calf injury that's going to sideline him for, I don't know, 2 to 4 weeks. And then, what does that Spurs team look like? We're still waiting for the moment where that they look like they can be really good, but they could also hit a hard patch in their schedule and lose a ton of games. And I'm not moving off of a 2027 pick from the Spurs when they truly haven't arrived yet. That could, I think worst case scenario, that's going to be like pick number 18. Best case scenario, that could be a top 10 pick. You were just waiting to see what that Spurs team is. And so I'm not sure that I would give up a pick, because you remember at the beginning of this, while they're dealing with the Kuminga situation, you guys were on board with giving up a potential first round 2026 first round pick. And it was like, no. I would not even remotely close to give up next year's pick, because this could easily be the top pick in the draft. This team is that bad. And if they're going to be
that conversation feels a little different today. I can't lie.
It does. As bad as they are, they're like, what?
Good thing they don't listen to us.
Like that.
Yeah.
There's teams that are not catching Brooklyn.
Yeah, but if they're the
Brooklyn,
sixth worst team,
Brooklyn, they're not catching Indiana.
Yeah.
Indiana.
They're a whole 2 games better than Indiana.
They gonna mess around and get the first pick. Is crazy. Indiana.
Well, no, but if you're the sixth pick in the lottery, you easily are in line to win the lottery.
And am I crazy to think Indiana's probably ecstatic? They're probably like, this is fine.
Well, we got Halliburton coming back.
We weren't winning the title this year anyways.
Yeah.
Who cares about making the playoffs?
Culture distracting us anyway.
That's right.
Well, that and also gives you time to see if Aaron Nesmith has more, Benedict Mathurin has more. some of those young players, because they have other young players that are good. And you're trying to see if they can prove up. And then when you get Halliburton back and he's the orchestrator, like, what does that team look like? They still have to find a way to replace Miles Turner, but yeah, not bad.
Hurt the other night. That was a tough little knee injury.
We got to do two things. We're going to be at Sky River Casino tonight, man. We would love to see you. 32 Bruce Street, Monday Night Football, just over an hour from now. Raiders, Cowboys. Stanley's already hit us up. He said he's coming to hang out. We'd love to see you there as well. If you have any non-perishable foods that you could bring for our Thanksgiving food drive, that would be awesome. You'll have no trouble getting into the casino with it. We'll have a donation bin. You could drop everything off right there. You don't have to carry it around with you or anything like that. It's 32 Bruce Street. It's tonight. As a matter of fact, we're wrapping things up right now. We're headed straight out to Elk Grove to our favorite spot, man, 32 Bruce Street, Sky River Casino. Also, would you mind if I read TC's message from the Chatty House verbatim?
Yeah.
Here is TC's message.
Okay.
I'm reading this as it is written, so bear with me. Y'all crazy. I'm attaching go first-round pick to Zach isn't the point of it all to move off the money and get the guys out of the building so we can move on with the bigger picture. That's our man TC right there. He cooking in the Chatty House. You could be a part of the Chatty House too over on youtube.com/ESPN1320 or twitch.tv/ESPN1320. Just a quick check-in. Yep, there's Jesse right there. Just wanted to make sure Jesse was there. And remember, if anything happens, if anyone cusses, just press the red button.
Hit the red button.
All right, man. We'll be back here tomorrow at 10 a.m., beginning with the Insiders. Hope to see you tonight. Monday Night Football, Raiders, Cowboys, 32 Bruce Street, inside Sky River Casino with D'Lo and KC on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320.
Vamos, red button.